Okay, so hello and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our Resumes and Covers Letters workshop hosted by Charmaine from Careerspace. I would like to take this opportunity just to remind everyone that we are recording this workshop for the purpose of being able to share the content with yourselves and with your peers who may not have been able to make it for the registered workshop but are interested in the content that we are presenting today. We are going to spend the first about 50 minutes with Charmaine, and she's going to go over some general tips and tricks. And then we will have an employer panel joining us for the workshop and an opportunity for questions and answers at the end. So I'm going to turn it over to Charmaine to facilitate our workshop. And thank you so much for joining.
Hey, welcome everyone. My name is Charmaine Roderick. I work at Careerspace. I do many of the services that you might want to use, and I'll talk about the services towards the end of the presentation. But I should also let you know, Ashley is monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions during my presentation, please go ahead and enter it in the chat, and then Ashley will jump in and ask me the question. Okay, so one of the greatest joys I have in my job is meeting with students to do resume and cover letter critiques. So I've been doing this at Trent for over 14 years, so I really have a good sense of what employers are looking for and the kinds of resumes and cover letters that are really good for students. So let me share some of that knowledge with you today. So this is what I'm going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about what is a resume, types of resumes, how to create a resume, and then also cover letters. But one thing I just want to make clear that your resume will get you the interview, not the job, the interviews, because that's the next step. So what do you have to put in a resume to get the interview? Well, think about your resume as a personal marketing tool. You're telling the employer in your resume why they should hire you, why they should invite you for an interview, so you can tell them all about, go into details about the skills, the knowledge, the experiences that you have that make you a good fit for that particular job. So it starts with the resume. You outline that in the resume, and hopefully you have made the case and they'll want to call you for an interview. So remember, you're telling the employer why you're a good fit for that particular job. So that's why you have to tailor every resume for every job that you're applying for. You know what the employer is looking for because it's on the job ad. So you are really working with the job ad to make sure your resume just speaks to what they're looking for. So you need to have a resume that is neat and easy to follow. So let's talk about format and organization. I've spoken to many employers and asked them this question, 1 or 2 pages. What do they want? And they're happy with 1 or 2. As long as if it's 2 pages, as long as it's like concise and it's only information that's relevant to the job that they're hiring for. So 1 or 2 pages is okay. Make sure it's a good common font style, nothing wacky, because remember these guys are reading lots of resumes. Their eyes are getting tired. They want it to be a good readable font size, something equivalent to Times New Roman 11. It doesn't have to be Times New Roman. It could be Arial, but the numbers don't always match up. So I always like to compare it to Times New Roman 11, but it doesn't have to be Times New Roman. Make sure there's nice white space in between sections, that good margins, so that it doesn't look like your information is like falling off the page. And try and make it look appealing by highlighting important parts of the resume. So I would suggest like the headings could be in bold, could be in caps, could be underlined. Definitely your degree, I would say that would be bolded. because you want to emphasize and highlight certain things. So use those tools like bolding, caps, underlining. But as I've pointed out here, hang on a sec. Um, as I've pointed it out over here, just don't overdo it, because you don't want that resume just yelling at them with bold and underline and caps everywhere. Use it, but don't abuse it. I will direct you to our Careerspace website. We have a lot of really good information and resources like our resume tip sheet, but a lot more. So you go to our website, go to the Get Career Ready tab, and then here's where you'll find lots of really good information. Let me point you to our resources. We have a brand new curated video library where we've got some of our own videos, but we've also got some really good videos that LinkedIn Learning has created. And we've curated those. They're all career related. So check that out. And you might not know it, but all students have access to LinkedIn Learning, free access. So whether you want to learn black and white photography or hopefully learn more about careers, you can go to the LinkedIn Learning video library that we've created and check out some of those. But of course, we have our own page full of our tip sheets that we've created for Trent students. So if you click on the tip sheets link, you'll get to our tip sheets page. You can see there's all sorts of career topics here, but you're going to be interested in the cover letters and the resumes tip sheet. We also have, I've created resume and cover letter samples, and they're just samples. They're not templates, so don't go and try and copy any of the wording or anything, but just they give you an idea of what I'm talking about in the tip sheets, and they give you and demonstrate what I'm talking about in this presentation today. So definitely go to our website and check out our tip sheets and resume samples. So the first part of the resume that I want to talk about is just your contact information. Make sure your name is nice and big. It's kind of your heading. So make sure it's nice and big. Your location, you can have your street address, but if you're worried about safety or security, you can just at least put the town, your contact information, phone number, your email address. So that's the first part. And then the next part is the objective. And I would say make sure your objective is very specific. So the objective is the specific job that you're applying for. So that's what I mean by targeted. And that's all you kind of need is the job and the organization. So for example, objective, a position with Trent Housing Services as a residence life John Peterborough campus, because that's the specific job that this person is applying to. So after the objective comes one of the most important parts of the resume. It's this section that's called, the highlights of qualification. You can call it a profile, you can call it a summary, but what it is, it's a few short statements that tell that employer, here's why you should keep reading my resume, because it is a summary. Make sure you're looking at the job ad, because remember, the job ad's telling you what they're looking for. The job ad will also have keywords that are going to be important for you to put in your resume. So make sure this section, actually your whole resume, but more specifically this section, reflects and summarizes some of the main points that the employer is looking for that they've outlined in the job ad. And it's really important to make this make these some good statements. So where you're proving things with brief examples or details. So for example, if you can see here, details, right? Provided friendly frontline service as a college student assistant answered questions, assisted students with accessing services. So I'm assuming this is one of the most important points for the job that this person is applying for. Proof, giving me some proof. As a resident student, attended many learning and social events provided by residents, provided by, I can't read because it's covered by the pictures of people, but also volunteered at several of these events. Familiar with many services at Trent through personal use and from referring others. So you can see where there's some details, some examples where what this person is saying, I believe it. Experienced in facilitation as an out on campus group discussion leader. And you can see, you know, they're saying demonstrated leadership by, and giving some examples, not just saying excellent leadership skills, which when I see that, I don't believe it. So make sure that you're giving some proof with examples and details. And you can see these are just brief. They're not going into a lot of super details, because this is there for you to sort of grab that attention of the employer and get them to keep reading, where there is going to be more details in the rest of your resume. So after that section, for students and recent graduates, you should have your education next. Because for students and recent graduates, this is what you have going for you. You might not have a lot of experience, but you have the education, and that might explain also why, you know, you don't have a lot of work experience, but it's also telling the employer the knowledge that you're coming with, especially if you are applying for jobs that are related to your field. So in this education sections, this is what I mentioned about put your degree first, and I would bold your degree because you want that to jump out at the reader. If you're applying for a job where your education is relevant to the job, you would have a section on relevant courses under here, maybe relevant projects. Maybe you did a research project, you know, a community-based research project that's given you some great experience in research, in community development, in working with others, and maybe that's what you want to highlight also in your resume. So that's what I would suggest. Now, before I get to the next part, which is all about experience and how you talk about your experience, I just want to make it clear, experience is not just paid work. You are, you know, gaining some great experiences through placements that you're doing for your course, community-based research that you're doing, field courses, internship courses, but also any volunteering you're doing is giving you some great experience, and extracurricular, and of course co-curricular activities. All of those give you experience and skills that you can, you know, leverage and put in your resume and let that employer see that you've got skills. So it's not just paid work. Now, if it's volunteering or not paid work, just make it clear that it is, for example, a volunteering position, that you put volunteer in brackets next to it. So so that the employer doesn't think you're trying to fool them into thinking you've got paid experience. Not that there's anything wrong with volunteer experience, it is still experience. So this is where how you talk about your experience and how you lay it out on your resume, that's what determines the two different styles of resume. There's like the experience-based resume, there's the skills-based resume, and then you can even like mash it up and combine the two. So just choose the style that works best for you and for your situation. And I'll explain what the situation is, why you would use one over the other when I'm showing you the different styles. So the first one we're going to look at is an example of an experience-based resume. So you would use an experience-based resume when you have the experience that fits with the job that you're applying to. So you would have the experience And you would have all the points, the skills, the knowledge you used to do these tasks, any accomplishments that are relevant to the job that you're applying for. All of that would fit under the experience. So you can see here it's a placement, here it's a summer job, but all that information, those points are under the experience because the experience is relevant to the job. So here, let's take a closer look at another one. So someone has experience as a rebound guide and also relevant experience as an outreach assistant. Volunteer, paid. How you talk about your experience is really important. You need these statements to be to really let the employer see the scope and or the depth of this experience. So you do that with really good descriptions, with numbers, details. So for example, for this rebound guide who's talking about their experience, met individually with 8 to 10 first-year students every week to discuss academic and etc. Collaborated with academic and support departments to develop and lead workshops. So you can see you're really getting a sense of the scope of this experience. You can see they didn't just say excellent teamwork skills, because that really says nothing, but developed teamwork skills from, here comes the proof, attending rebound guide team meetings, working together, events, and collaborating on program development. So the other thing to notice on the way these descriptions are, starting the phrases with these action verbs. So collaborated, provided, demonstrated, and anything that has finished is going to be in the past tense, the verbs. If you're still doing it, if it's like to present because you're still doing this job, then you would be using things in the verbs in the present tense, not the past tense. So that's the experience-based resume when you have relevant experience. But what if you're applying for a job and you don't have that relevant experience like the previous resume, but you still you can do this job because you have the skills to do the job that you're applying for. So for example, and this is the skills-based resume, here's someone whose only work experience has been Tim Hortons, but they're applying for a lab job. And why do they think they can apply for a lab job? Well, because they are a biology student and they've done lots of labs and developed all kinds of skills that make them able to do this lab job. If they had put just the work experience with Tim Hortons and how they made coffee and how they served customers, the employer's going to be thinking like, why are they giving us all this details? In our biology lab, we're not making coffee or serving donuts. So why are they giving us all of these details? So that's why the experience-based resume wouldn't work in this case. Here, the focus is on the skills that this person has developed through their education. And these are the things, these skills are what's going to capture the employer's attention and make that employer aware of the fact that this student can do this job. So it's a skills-based resume. So let's take a closer look at this. So for example, how are you going to do that? Because you have to work off the job ad, because remember the job ad, they're telling you what they're looking for. So for example, a college ambassador position, these are some points, skills required that are in the job ad. Here is the relevant skills section of someone applying to this job. And I'm trying to sort of show you the matching. Here they're asking for communication skills. Here the person applying for this job is saying they have verbal and written skills developed from presentations and reports done for university courses. So they've pulled those skills from university courses and they've explained it. Here they've asked for organizational skills. This student is saying they maintained excellent academic standing while participating in many extracurricular activities as a result of organization, prioritization, and time management skills. So here's kind of the proof saying of these skills. Then the job ad is asking for interpersonal skills. And they're saying proof as a volunteer peer mentor demonstrated a high level of interpersonal skills and active listening when meeting with students. So now in my head, I can actually see this person doing all of these things if I'm the employer. And that's a good place. You want to be in the employer's head. You want them already seeing you doing these jobs and demonstrating these skills, because then they're like, wow, this person is a really good fit for our job. We should interview them. And then again, ability to take initiative. They're talking about some of the extracurricular activities where they organized events for cabinet and was praised by the team for their creative ideas and their ability to stay calm and solve problems during events. So you can see how these skills are taken and reflect what's being asked for by the employer. At this point, I also want you to think about some of the skills that you've developed because of COVID. You've probably had to adapt very quickly, whether it's for school or maybe you had a part-time job or a summer job this past summer. Whatever the changes that were required, you had to adapt quickly. I'm hearing the word pivot, like being able to pivot as being an important ability. You've had to work and study remotely. So what does that mean? You've developed new technology skills. You've probably, if you're working remotely, you're working with minimum supervision. You've had to, with your courses, everything being online and maybe not as structured as you're used to having in-person classes, you've had to deal with time management. You've had to be organized. But also, if you've been doing Zoom meetings, you've had to kind of be professional, and so you have a professional video presence. You've been able to follow policies and procedures, whether it's for school or for your part-time job. And maybe over the summer when you couldn't find a part-time job, maybe you did some virtual volunteering. So these are just some ideas kind of I thought of because of the things that we've had to do because of COVID. I'm sure you can think of a lot more for your situation, but those are valuable skills. Keep in mind they may be important and relevant to the job that you're applying for. So after that experience section, now you're open to like other possible headings. You could have a volunteer section, an extracurricular or co-curricular section on your resume. If you have several awards, you may want to have that separate in an awards and achievement section. If you have like one Dean's Honor Roll or something like that, you can put that in the education section. But if you've had a lot of awards, you might want to have a separate section after the experience section. And don't forget any training and certification that may be relevant. So Safe Talk, AODA, first aid, those kinds of things. But, sort of relevant. If you're applying for that lab job, you're going to talk about lab safety training you've had, but there's no need to include your SMART serve, that you can serve alcohol, certification, because then again, they're going to be, okay, we're not serving alcohol in this lab. Why are they telling me about their SMART serve credentials? And then last of all is interest. This is one where if you don't have room, it's okay to leave it out. But sometimes when you've put your interest in there, it's just interesting for the reader, right? If I'm hiring and I read that someone plays the bagpipes, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Sometimes your interest also reinforces your your passion or your love for the field, right? So if you're an environmental student, and your interests are hiking and canoeing and camping, it's obvious that you love the outdoors, you love the environment. It doesn't always match up, but sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes you might not want to put some stuff in if it gives away, um, maybe political affiliations if you volunteered or in some political campaign. And maybe you don't want to give away that kind of personal, in a way, information. So be careful what you put down as your interests. Okay, so one thing I want to just make you aware of, and I know Trent does not have an applicant tracking system, but some employers, and especially if you're applying online to like jobs on Indeed or anything where you're uploading your resume, some employers use an applicant tracking system. So what that is, it's software that helps the employer um, filter out applications that don't meet the criteria that they're looking for, and they create a short list. I mean, eventually there is a human who is reading those resumes, but it's the shortlisted resumes. So you just don't want to accidentally be booted out of the system because of some of the mistakes on your resume. Some things that the applicant tracking system has trouble with. So before I talk about that, let's just say what's helpful. And this is helpful with an applicant tracking system or just any resume, even if it's just goes straight to a human. Make sure you're using keywords and keyword phrases, basically words that are used in your field, words that are in the job ad. But you're not just throwing those words in there, you're using it in context. But also, other people are using the keywords that they're seeing in the job ad. Think about variations of those keywords that you might want to also use in your resume. Use the full spelling of something, and then in brackets, put the abbreviation. And then later on in your resume, you can then just use the abbreviation. But make sure there is a full spelling somewhere in there. Keep the formatting simple, because applicant tracking systems cannot read anything that's in a table, that are in columns, that are in text boxes. Don't put your name and information in the header, because applicant tracking systems can't read things that are in a header or a footer. And this is one of the reasons why you should not use a template, because there's a lot of bad templates out there, and they often use these columns and text boxes, which basically means your resume cannot be read by an applicant tracking system. If like, so for Trent, if they're not using an applicant tracking system, sure, go ahead, put something in the header or put something in a table, but just know that an applicant tracking system can't read that if you're applying for jobs where the employer is using an applicant tracking system. You can still make your resume look good, because you can still use bullets and bold text, caps and tabs. That's fine with the applicant tracking system. Then usually right at the end, we'll have a little phrase that says references available. It is optional. It's a given now that you are going to provide references. Usually they ask for that at the interview. Sometimes if you have to fill out an application form, they ask for references on the application form. But if you're just sending a resume, it's okay to just say references available, because they will want you to send that once they've interviewed you. So references, of course, employers make the best, former employers or present employers make the best references. But if you've done placements, if you've done volunteering, those supervisors make good references too. But you can stretch it to group club leaders, professors that you have worked with a little bit. Whoever you ask, make sure you contact them and get their permission to use them as a reference. And then it's a good idea when you're applying for jobs, or if you're coming up for an interview, contact that person who is your reference and give them information about the position that you're being interviewed for, and sort of help them do a good job. Help them to be a good reference for you by reminding them about all the things you did for them, what skills you had demonstrated in the tasks that you had done, and maybe some achievements that you had had while you were on the job. So, okay, how are we doing for time? Great. I'm going to talk to you now about cover letters. And I know sometimes, people don't want a cover letter, but it's becoming quite standard that people do ask for a cover letter. And why do they want to see a cover letter? Well, first, let me tell you, most employers are going to read your resume first because it's very competitive. They get a lot of applications. They don't have a lot of time to spend on an application that may not be a good fit. So they'll give you a resume about 30 seconds to look at, and to find out, do you have what they're looking for? Because a resume is a bunch of bullet points. It's a quick read. There's highlighted, bolded sections. So they can really get a good sense of who you are, what you have to offer by reading your resume. So they'll most times they'll read the resume first. Really care. Then if you've tailored it to the job, you've captured them with that highlight section, they're now reading the rest of your resume, then they have a good sense of what you're coming with, what skills, knowledge, experiences you're coming with. Then they're going to read the cover letter, because a cover letter is very text heavy. So you've already got them interested in you because of the resume. Now they're going to read your cover letter. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about what you're going to put in the resume. So you write the cover letter to maybe highlight a few of the experiences that you've talked about in your resume. You're making that connection in your cover letter that you know what the job is all about, you know what the job requirements are, and you have the ability to do that. You have to make sure you're writing well in terms of spelling and grammar, because you are, through this cover letter, demonstrating your writing skills. And a resume is just a bunch of bullet points. A cover letter, you're giving through sort of the prose, the paragraphs you're writing, you're giving that employer, the reader, a sense of your personality. So make it interesting. Let them see that you really care about this job and getting this job. So the tip sheet, our cover letter tip sheet, breaks it down also in terms of what's in each paragraph, but I'll briefly go over that with you. First, let's look at the layout. Have the contact information the same as your resume. Then you're putting the date, then you're putting who you're writing to, who you're sending this to, what's it about, what's the position, and then the dear, whatever their name is. If you don't have a name, I don't know, I've seen people write dear sir / madam. I don't know, I don't kind of like that. I don't like being called madam. And if they're gender neutral, it just doesn't work. To whom it may concern sounds kind of, I don't know, a bit flippant, like, are you concerned? I don't know. If you're concerned, read this letter, right? So I might, if I didn't have a name, I would leave out the dear. Sometimes people put dear hiring manager, and that's fine too. And then you get right into the body of the letter, and then there's the closing, and then your name. So let's go into a bit of detail about what should be in each paragraph as the cover letter tip sheet outlines. So the first paragraph, make it interesting, because you want to grab them again, right? You don't want to start with, my name is Charmaine Roderick and I'm applying for the job of blah, blah, blah. Just start with something interesting, and you want to grab them. In that first paragraph, you also want to mention something about the organization, that you know who they are, you know what they do, and you're going to show that you're a good fit for them. So for example, if you're applying for the Zosky College ambassador position, you might start the body of your cover letter with, Dear Dr. Melanie Buttle, I saw the Zosky College ambassador position on the Trent Student Job Board, and I know I have the qualifications to do a really great job for you. So right away, the employer is like, wow, they know, I know now from reading just that first sentence that they're really keen on doing a good job. The other thing, I think the job ad did not have the name. It would have had maybe the president or principal of Zosky College. But if you can, do the research, go on the website. Who is this, president of the company that you're applying for? Or who is the principal of Zosky College? And you may be the only one that says, Dear Dr. Melanie Buttle. So bonus points for that. Okay, so as my resume shows, so now you're directing them to your resume. I have many skills for this position, and I also really enjoy helping people. So that's a key point for this position, and you're pointing it out right away. I have participated in many Zosky College events and visited the college office for information and referrals. So I know that colleges do important work. So right away, you're making it clear you know what this job and what this position is all about. So then in the middle paragraphs, it could be one or two middle paragraphs. Here's where you're letting the employer know that you know what the position's all about, you have the experience, skills, and knowledge to do the job. You're not going into like lots of details because that's in your resume. Here's where you get a chance to tell a story, a brief story, or give more examples that demonstrate how you've used this knowledge and skills in the past. But you're only talking about knowledge and skills that are relevant to the job. You can tell a story in a paragraph where a resume is just a bunch of bullet points. So expand on some of those points by telling a story of how you demonstrated maybe one or two of those key points. And again, while you're telling a story, you're making it interesting. You're letting your personality shine through. So that's the middle one or two paragraphs. So in the last paragraph, this is where you kind of get to wrap it up, right? You want to emphasize how you're really interested or keen on the job, about the job. There's a call to action. You want an interview. That's the next step. And it's your chance to let them know how to contact you. If there's some issues about your availability or anything like that, for them to contact you, maybe that here's this last paragraph is where you can address some of those issues. So I'll read the last paragraph I've prepared. I believe that my work experience in customer service has given me the skills to be a great Zosky College ambassador. So again, you're tying in your skills, right? The college has helped me a lot, and I would love to give back by helping students as an ambassador. So here your passion is coming out, or your interest, and you know why this job is important for you. You're finishing off with that kind of sentence. So I look forward to hearing from you to discuss this opportunity in further detail. You can reach me at or via email. Thank you for your consideration. So a nice wrap up in the last paragraph. All right, so we've covered resumes, we've done the cover letters, and really for both documents, it's so important to proofread because yes, mistakes, bad grammar, spelling mistakes, it really does reflect badly on you. So proofread your documents many times, get other people to proofread it, your friends, because sometimes you just miss the same mistake over and over again. Maybe walk away for an hour or a day and come back and you might see some mistakes and errors that you hadn't seen before. So really important point here. All right. I would just encourage you to follow us, Careerspace. We're social. So Careerspace, which includes Trent Community Research Center. We're all under one umbrella. Follow us. We're on Facebook. We have Instagram. We have Twitter. So keep in touch, because this is our way of letting you know what's going on. If there are hot jobs or employers, recruiting or events, we'll let you know through our social media. So for example, save the date. We have a career expo, a virtual career expo coming up in January and early February. These are some of the dates, and these are sort of the the employers, the fields that the employers will be from. Some of this may change. This is quite, preliminary, but save the dates, and if you follow us, we'll give you more details. Um, but keep this in mind, and these employers would be hiring for like students who are graduating, but also it may be for summer jobs, it may be for part-time work. So just come and check it out, and like I said, it's virtual. So follow us, you'll find out more about all of this. All right, so now I'm going to turn it over to Ashley, and we are going to hear from an employer panel. I love listening to employers because they're the ones who are doing the hiring. So I love listening to what they have to say, because then I can take that information and take it back to the students that I meet with. So you're really fortunate today to have some employers on this panel tell you what they look for in an application. So I'm going to hand that over to Ashley now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Charmaine, for sharing all of those tips and tricks. And I know I learned a few things along the way. It's been a while since I've updated my own resume, but thank you so much for that. I am so pleased to be a part of this wonderful employer panel with representatives from my colleagues in Housing Services, the Office of Student Affairs, and Soski College and Autonomy College. And we are looking forward to sharing with you a little bit about our own roles and what to expect from our upcoming hiring processes for student employment opportunities across campus. And we're also excited to be here to share with you some things to maybe prepare for or plan that complement the tips that Charmaine has shared with you today. And I'm going to get things started with talking a little bit about what's upcoming in housing services. So as you may see from my virtual background here, we are going to be hiring. We are going to be looking for student employees from across the board to join our residence life and education team and our operations team. I am the residence education coordinator for housing services, and that also includes coordinating the student staff hiring and development and training programs for our department. So I'm going to start off by sharing a little bit about the residence life and education positions, and then I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues Robin and Jillian to talk a little bit more about the housing operations team and services. So we want to just encourage you to explore all of the opportunities that we have. Our application opens on December 1st, so next Tuesday, and we will have all of our hiring information hosted on the website trentu.ca/housing/hiring. We are also hosting a virtual information session on this Wednesday at 4 o'clock. And the information to register for that virtual information session is also on our website. So residence life and education roles are primarily live-in positions. So many of our staff in this area of our department do live in residence, and you may be familiar with some of these roles being residence life dawn, living learning community dawn. We have senior residence life dawns, and we also have experienced staff who return to our team. These positions are available at both the Peterborough and Durham campuses. And if you are a new applicant to the department, you are most likely going to be looking at the Residence Life Dawn and Living Learning Community Dawn positions. But we also have another position that is hourly wage and part-time employment. And you also are not required to live in residence for this position. And that is the Residence Life and Education Assistant position that reports to me directly. It is hourly waged as mentioned, and a previous volunteer or work experience on campus or within housing services is considered an asset in this role, but not required. And so if you are looking for an opportunity to work within the Residence Life and Education Department, we do have those positions available to you if you are seeking off-campus housing or already living off campus. For these positions, we have an application form for each role, and those application forms will be available on our website next Tuesday. And my tips and tricks that I would encourage you to do is review all of the job descriptions and really do your research on what is it about the positions that really attract you and what are the skills that you're hoping to get out of the experience when looking at jobs in housing. We are going to be doing some Instagram takeovers and also profiling some of our current staff over the next little while on our Trent Housing Instagram account. So I would encourage you to look at following us on social media if you're not already, because hearing from current staff might be just the thing that you need to hear that interests you about why you want to join that role. We are encouraging you to apply to the roles that really interest you. We do have so many options available within our department, and it can be, and you have the opportunity to apply to everything, but then you may have several interviews in January because we do interview for the individual roles. It's not one interview that captures all the roles you apply to. So please really do take the time to review the job descriptions, which are up online right now, and think about what it is that you would like to get out of the experience when considering applying to our roles. We will be interviewing in January. Our application deadline is on January 13th at 4 o'clock. And so we will be conducting all of our interviews throughout the month of January for all of these positions. So I'm going to turn it over to Jillian and Robin, who can speak to some of our operations team positions, and they can take it away.
Thank you, Ashley, for that. And thank you, Charmaine, for that great presentation. Very informative. So Robin and
Jillian will tell you more about her staff. Oh, I think I'm frozen. Am I still frozen? Can people nod so I can see if they can hear me? Nope. Cool.
Robin has some technical difficulties, but I'll jump in for her. But Robin and I work with Ashley in housing services, and we are the operations side of things. So our team are students that help support students living in residence, as well as prospective students coming in. And so I'm Jillian. I do recruitment and admissions for housing. So that entails applications and asking students what they need from us to help choose a residence space and choosing spaces to come to Trent. Robin is the facilities coordinator for us. So she focuses on helping students in residence, whether they need supports with their rooms, room changes, keys, and all those aspects. So for our student staff, we are hiring positions as service center assistants, as well as facilities assistants. So those students would be helping Robin out with students that are currently living in residence and need those supports. And we're also hiring for housing admissions assistants. So students who help answer the phone and help us with some customer service skills and sets for prospective students and parents who have questions about Trent. Similar to Ashley's information about how to apply for those positions, our website is www.trent.ca/housing/hiring. And in that page, you can see all the different roles that we are hiring for, as well as the steps. For the operations roles, we do ask that you submit a resume and a cover letter. So if you're paying attention to Charmaine's presentation, it's a great way to get started. And you would just email that to ops student hiring at trentu.ca. So OPS student hiring at trentu.ca. And we are expecting to open that on December the 1st. So similar to the roles that Ashley was talking about. And the applications do close on January the 13th at 4 p.m. And we'll be doing our interviews in January as well. And some tips for applying to roles within housing and on campus. I'd say choose a job that interests you. Take a look at the student job board and the different opportunities on campus and see what interests you and come to that with an open mind, but also look at the department that you're applying for. A lot of those skill sets that they require would be something that you can work on while as a student staff, as well as it's always great to learn while working at Trent. So you're learning that new skill set to something that you can use later on afterwards as well. And the last thing is that don't be afraid to reach out to us if you do have any questions. No matter what department that you are looking into, we are more than happy to answer any of your questions before you apply. I don't know if Robin is back in, if she wants to add anything, but.
I think her computer crashed, so
I
have been chatting with her on our Teams door, so I know that she was working her way in, but I think that you covered everything, Jillian, so that's fantastic. So we're going to turn it over to Krista from the Office of Student Affairs. Krista, you're on mute.
I'm so used to running the meeting that I forget that I have to like unmute myself. Just shows you where I am in the world today. So hi, I'm Krista. I am the Student Retention Programs Coordinator. I go by she, her pronouns, and I run a couple of programs on campus. So the first being Rebound, which is probably the one that I hire the most students for, as well as Out on Campus, which Charmaine had highlighted in her presentation. And I also run Black Student Support, which is a group discussion in collaboration with the Human Rights Office. So just kind of taking a look at some of the things I wanted to highlight in my little intro would be that we really look to hire students mostly in the winter semester. We do post a resume and cover letter for rebound guides, and then a statement of intent for people who are looking to apply for Out on Campus, group leader, or for Black student support. And again, hire in the winter semester. So generally we post the job in February or March on the student job board. And so usually what I'm looking for in applicants is I want to know why you want the role. These three groups help support students in a variety of different capacities. So when I see something that's a little bit generic that you've probably sent to like 100 of the same employers, it doesn't always work for a role where you're going to be helping people. So I really want to see you've looked over the job description and connected your work experiences to the initial like description that I have. And if you're like really enthusiastic about the work and any training that you've done to fit that role. The other thing I also look for is I do not like math, and I only hire third and fourth year students to be rebound guides. So I really like Charmaine's tip by saying like put your education and potentially your graduation date, even better, highlighted in your cover letter and say I am a third year student, or I am going into my third year, or I'm going into my fourth year, because it prevents me from trying to look it up into the computer. And as an employer, sometimes you don't like taking those extra steps. You really want your candidate to give that information to you, because I get an average of about 150 applications for rebound guides. And so if 150 of those people don't put their data down, then it's really challenging for me to want to search all those people on the computer. But that's just like general tip. Sure, there'll be more questions, but that's something I always look for is how much information is provided, and does it coexist with the guidelines that I've kind of put out in the resume and cover letter or statement of intent is something that I really look for in candidates for the jobs. Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Krista, for sharing those tips. And as you can can see, there are lots of employment opportunities just around the corner across campus. And so we're going to capstone this wonderful panel with tips and tricks before we move into the question and answer with Zosky College and Autonomy College. And we're very pleased to have principals from both colleges, Melanie and Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. Great to see you here, and thank you for inviting us. So I'll introduce myself, and then Stephanie will test your microphone. I am Melanie Buttle, and I am the principal of Peter Zosky College.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Are we good? Awesome, my microphone is having moments. Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Olataller and I'm the principal of Autonomy College. We're over here on the East Bank. Come over sometime. It's a great place to be.
So both of us will, and actually we can speak for all the colleges here. We also typically hire students to work in the college office throughout the school year as a part-time job. But we also hire full-time students in the summer for full-time student positions in the college offices. We usually are posting between, sort of depends, but definitely not before January, and probably more like February-ish. Yeah, you have to keep your eyes on the job board, as Charmaine said, right? You really have to watch. One of the things that I was thinking during Charmaine's excellent presentation was also that you really have to look at it regularly, because sometimes, and I'm thinking about Krista talking about 150 applications, we might not want 150 to read through. We may only post that for a shorter window, right? So you really want to be watching, because if I put a job up for 3 weeks, I'm going to get more applications, and maybe I want the quick ones that, that grabbed it in the first 3 days. So just be aware that they change frequently. We hire college ambassadors, as Charmaine was using in that example, and those are students that work in our front office and do a variety of things, ranging from sort of phone triage and helping people that walk in and helping book appointments with other services on campus, and actually also representing the college as ambassadors of the college and helping us run events as well. So you can do a little bit of everything in the college office positions. Did you want to add to that, Stephanie?
Yeah, I think you did a great job. It's largely kind of front desk triage with some event planning as well. And so that'll look different based on each college and the type of portfolios they have. So there's lots of opportunity for folks that are interested in graphic design, for example, because I'll speak for Mel and I, you know, that's not our forte as much. And we love when students can design us beautiful things. So maybe I'll speak for myself. I don't know about Mel. Canva's not my friend. And also the only other caveat I would add is the trail position does look a little bit different. They have more of an intern position, and that in a, I would say, traditional year works some more nights or later afternoons, where for us, we are more the 9 to 5, 8:30 to 4 type of thing. And then the other piece is we do tend to hire students within our own college for our college ambassador position. So if you are interested in those positions, I would say make sure not only on the job board, but also to be checking out the Instagram account of the college in which you are a part, because for sure we'll be posting on there as well.
And to speak to Krista's point of not looking too many things up, it's really nice if you're applying for a job in Zosky College, if your cover letter indicates that you are a Zosky College student. And these might seem like obvious things, but as Charmaine was talking, I'm sure all of us were thinking this, that spell checking, the reading out loud, the making sure it looks professional right off the top. But as you said, Charmaine, I mean, I won't speak for Stephanie, but a lot of color and crazy fonts and splashy, flashy, we don't want that. I know you might think, oh, I can really stand out here and make it, maybe I'll put it in Zosky colors. Please don't. We want it to really have that more plain professional look, because we are, as we've all said, looking at quite a few resumes. We've had a lot of experience looking at resumes. Spelling matters. It sounds maybe like, how could they not consider me if I spelled Zosky wrong? But if I'm looking at 75 applicants and the other ones did not spell Zosky wrong, that's going to be one of those small things that it's like a yes, no, and thinking about Charmaine's point about what we're looking for, and that really great point, Charmaine, about tying your specific experience to the job. It's almost sometimes like we are marking your resume. We have to say, oh, did they hit this point? Yep, yep, yep. And we might even be doing that kind of a comparison when we are looking at your resume and cover letter. So the more buttons you're hitting, the more things you're hitting from that job application, the better it is. And I would really add that relevant skills or relevant experiences is a great tip too. And sometimes actually can help you in that, ooh, what if they got that they're not saying? My son is a teenager and he doesn't have 18 pages, so he just says relevant. It's like, oh, maybe there's more in his bucket there. There isn't. He's very young, but it sounds like there might be. So it's kind of it does do double duty there. The other tip, and then I'll go back to Stephanie, that I would give you, don't rely on the fact that we know who you are. So Trent University is small. You might think, oh, I've seen Stephanie at things and she's great and she knows my name, and you write, Dear Steph or Dear Mel. We would rather that you write, Dear Principal Muehletaler. And then when you come into the interview, you want to keep your professionalism. Even if you know us outside of the job, it's really important that you come into those experiences professionally, sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Being professional when you sit down for that interview, and not just relying on the fact that you know us outside of the job. So you don't have to always say Dr. So-and-so, but even in my case, you might say Melanie over Mel. That sounds very small. I'm happy with Mel, but I don't want it in an interview context. I want your professional, formal A game. And then the last piece for me is, you don't need to be wearing a business suit, but it's always better if you're not wearing jogging pants. Enough said. Steph.
I have to agree with Krista on the piece. A minor spelling mistake is okay, but if there's littered with spelling and then the line is, I have a high level of detail, or I'm very detail oriented, and my last name's Muehletaler, so please just look it up. It's a doozy. If you could spell it right, that's great. And the other piece that I would say is, if you're interested, do some informational interviews, and I'm sure Charmaine has some more information on that, but book an appointment, come to the college office, talk to the students that already have the job. What do they love about it? The way we treat our positions are that they're learning opportunities. Is not just about the service that you're providing, but we really focus on different learning objectives based on the student here in the office. So get an understanding of what makes them come back year after year in these roles. Sit down with us. I'll take you to coffee, my treat, and we'll talk about what you're interested in. So those informational interviews will give you a deeper understanding of what the job may really be about versus what you think it may be just because you've come into the college office a couple of times. And obviously, I would say use your resources like Careerspace and some of the other resources on campus, because then you understand a little bit of what those are all about. I mean, there is training involved, of course, but yeah, no, I think Mel and Krista and Jillian did a great job of articulating some of those similar threads that I think can be applied to all the different positions. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So Charmaine, if you'd like to advance the next slide, because I think it's a wonderful way to wrap up on the point that Stephanie was just touching on, is that Careerspace is a wonderful resource that students, staff, alumni, all alike of the Trent community have access to. And as Charmaine highlighted throughout the presentation, there are so many resources available on the website, whether they be in the video library or templates and examples that you can refer to help you walk through the steps of applying for student employment opportunities. Or even employment opportunities if you are looking to be graduating this year and looking for your career options. So Charmaine has provided the website information as a reminder, but I would also turn to Charmaine just to see if there's any other wrap-up points that you'd like to summarize based on some of the things we shared in the employer panel before we move into some questions.
Okay, great. I would like to just say that you can go to the Student Experience portal where you can book other appointments. You can book an appointment with Careerspace. You would be meeting with me on a video chat. You could also just do a telephone appointment, but a video chat is much better. And I can do a one-on-one half-hour appointment reviewing your resume and giving you some feedback. So I share my screen. We're both looking at your resume and I'm going through it and giving you some feedback on your resume, cover letter. I also do LinkedIn profile reviews, and I know I'll be back in January doing a presentation about interviews, but I also do interview prep. And my colleague Mary Goldsmith, she does career counseling appointments, which are about 45-minute appointments and half-hour career talks. So those would be for things like, you know, I don't know how to look for jobs, or I don't know what to do with this degree, or I'm not sure if I want to do further education. So definitely you would be meeting with Mary. But also check out our website. We have some great information about networking with Trent grads. We have a Trent U Connect program where you connect and network with Trent grads. We have also the whole Trent community-based research options that you can have, that you can gain more experience. Lots of stuff on our website. So I'll just leave it at that and hope to meet some of the students on an appointment.
Wonderful.
Open to any questions if anyone has questions.
Yeah, so I was just going to say that I'm going to stop the recording at this point so that there's an opportunity to ask some questions. Please feel free to use the chat box, or if you'd like to use either the raise hand function or unmute and jump in with a question if you are comfortable with doing so. And I will stop the recording. And thank you once again to everyone who both attended and had opportunities to present today. We really appreciate everyone's insight and knowledge.